In the early 1970s, Europe was booming. Factories were running, cars filled the streets, and economies were growing fast. Oil was cheap, and nobody imagined it could ever run out. But in October 1973, everything changed. An energy shock hit Europe so hard that it reshaped its entire economy and politics for decades. This is the story of how the 1973 energy crisis began, and how it changed Europe forever. In the years after World War II, Europe was rebuilding. The economic miracle had turned cities like Paris, London, and Berlin into modern powerhouses. Oil became the lifeblood of this growth, cheap, easy to get, and abundant. Most of it came from the Middle East, supplied by members of OPEC, the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries. By the early 1970s, European countries were importing up to 80% of their oil. Cars, factories, electricity, almost everything depended on it. But this heavy dependence would soon turn into Europe's biggest weakness. On October 6, 1973, a war broke out in the Middle East. Egypt and Syria launched a surprise attack on Israel. During the Jewish holy day of Yom Kippur, the United States and many European countries quickly supported Israel. In response, Arab oil-producing nations decided to use their most powerful weapon, oil. OPEC, led by Saudi Arabia, announced an oil embargo on countries that supported Israel. They cut production and refused to sell oil to the US, the Netherlands, and other Western allies. Overnight, the flow of oil to Europe slowed dramatically. Before the crisis, oil prices were about $3 per barrel. By early 1974, they had quadrupled to nearly $12 per barrel. This sudden spike shocked the global economy. In Europe, gas stations ran out of fuel. Long lines of cars waited for hours just to fill their tanks. Governments began rationing energy. Streetlights were turned off, and Sunday driving bans were introduced. Factories reduced their working hours, or even shut down completely. People realized for the first time that modern life could stop without oil. The crisis didn't just affect fuel, it triggered massive inflation. Prices for everything rose, from food to electricity. Unemployment climbed, and economic growth slowed sharply. This was the end of the golden age of post-war prosperity. Europe's dependence on imported energy had made it extremely vulnerable. Politicians and economists began to rethink everything: how energy was produced, distributed, and consumed. In the United Kingdom, the government even introduced a 3-day workweek to conserve electricity. Across Germany and France, people were encouraged to turn down heating and save power. It was a shock that changed everyday life. The oil crisis had huge political consequences. Western countries realized they could no longer rely completely on the Middle East. This led to new foreign policies aimed at securing energy independence. Some countries, like France, made bold moves, investing heavily in nuclear power. By the 1980s, nuclear energy supplied over 70% of France's electricity, a direct result of the 1973 crisis. Meanwhile, the crisis also gave power to OPEC. Oil-producing nations realized they could influence the global economy by controlling supply. This shifted global power away from the West. For the first time in decades, the 1973 energy crisis changed the way Europe thought about energy forever. Governments started to invest in renewable energy, efficiency, and alternative fuels. Public transportation became a new priority. Car manufacturers began developing smaller, more fuel-efficient vehicles. Economists coined a new term, stagflation, meaning stagnant growth combined with rising prices. It became one of the most difficult challenges for policymakers. Throughout the 1970s, the crisis also shaped public awareness. People became conscious of energy consumption, conservation, and the limits of fossil fuels. By the time the embargo ended in 1974, Europe had changed forever. It had learned the painful truth: energy security is national security. The events of 1973 forced nations to diversify their energy sources and prepare for future shocks. Even today, decades later, the echoes of that crisis remain. Whenever oil prices rise or political tensions erupt, the memory of 1973 reminds the world how fragile the energy system can be. The 1973 oil crisis wasn't just about fuel. It was about power, politics, and the realization that the modern world runs on limited resources. And for Europe, it was the moment that changed everything.